Can you remember the first time you played DayZ? It may have been the vanilla version of the original Arma 2 mod, or maybe Origins, Epoch, Overwatch, or a bunch of others. It might even have been Dayz Standalone. Some of you may even have been a first-timer in all of them. But can you remember the very first time you ever set foot in the DayZ universe? I can. It was the original version of the mod, based on Arma 2 with the Operations Arrowhead expansion, back in the summer or autumn of 2012. I first logged in with my friend Peter, who had been playing for a while before me. It was late in the evening, so it was late in the server too. And the daylight was dying, and I managed to get myself an axe and some supplies. We were just north of Prigo, between Cherno and Electro, and we were very cautiously approaching Prigo's outlying farmhouses. We managed to loot a few of the farmhouses before the meat sticks caught us. Peter was holding his own, but I got pretty badly hit up and broke my leg. It was dark already by the time I'd crawled back to the tree line, Peter covering my slow retreat. He told me he would go to the Cherno hospital to see if he could find some morphine for my leg. We agreed that I would either wait or try to crawl my way towards Cherno so we could make up every bit of time already lost. I crawled to Cherno anyway. I can't remember how long it took, but I got there eventually, and we even got my leg fixed. I never thought of respawning, never thought of crawling back to Prigo to let the meat sticks kill me, never cried in side chat for somebody to kill me. That's how strong the immersion was for me when I played it for the first time. I simply had to survive. This video looks back over the life of Dayz Standalone, from its announcement to its release, and from then until now. I'm also thinking about how well it's fared against my general expectations and hopes, and where Dayz Standalone stands in comparison to the variety of mods it spawned. I won't be going into too much detail about the game engine and mechanical stuff, mainly because it's the overall experience I'm thinking about when I determine whether I like a game or not. Dayz Standalone entered playable early access on the 16th of December 2013, and I was among the first to buy a copy. It cost me about $25 to get my hands on it. Not too bad, I thought, because it felt good to hand over my money in appreciation of the original mod. I'd had the game's dev blog on my radar for a whole year before release, and some of the stuff the devs were talking about on it sounded truly promising. Some of it maybe not too much, but I wanted to try the real version of the mod I'd spent huge amounts of time on. Other people were excited about it too, about 800,000 other people in fact. By the end of December, in just over 2 weeks, that's how many units Dayz Standalone had moved. Was I excited? Was I ever? From the time of the first announcement to the release of the alpha version of the standalone, there had been quite a lot of development of the original mod. The mod had itself been modded. This is the key thing in my mind as to why so much anger has boiled up in the Dayz community since the release of the standalone alpha. Some of the creative folks have been very busy, and have added some very appealing elements to the vanilla release. In early 2013, there was an apocalyptic boom, the fallout from which saw the birth of two princes, DayZ Epoch and DayZ Origins. Although Dayz Standalone missed its original release in late 2012, us survivors had something new and exciting in their hands anyway. Heavily customized and armed with solid backstories, both Epoch and Origins began to cut their way through the community. They had bunches of features that people had been crying out for, such as base housing building, more loot, more weapons, more vehicles, hell, more of everything. We also finally had some endgame content, so it was that my visits to the official dev blog were not as filled with excitement as they had been before. Now they talked about upcoming features and improvements that I was already playing and experiencing with DayZ Epoch and DayZ Origins. While Standalone's creator Dean Rocket Hall was off climbing mountains in April 2013, we were fighting to keep our bases safe on the new improved outgrowths of the main mod. There were already new volumetric clouds in the distance. The far distance, I should say, but still. Then Arma 3 Alpha was released on the 5th of March, and you didn't need to be a huge intellectual to guess that some of the coolest Arma 2 mods, including the Dayz stuff, would be ported over to some point. The question was, how would that affect Dayz Standalone? To my mind, it went like this. Dayz Standalone was based on a branch of Bohemia Interactive's take on Mars engine. Enforce, slightly reworked for Standalone with some added Arma 3 stuff, which itself was a branch of the Arma 2 engine, Real Virtuality 3. So Dayz Standalone would use a branch of the Dayz mods engine. You get me? Also, the map would still be Chernarus, which we were getting pretty used to by now. I compared all of this to what we knew of the Arma 3 engine, and I'll be honest, I was more anxious to play Dayz Epoch in Arma 3 than to finally see the release of Dayz Standalone. But like I said, those clouds were still far away. By summer 2013, Dayz Standalone was progressing steadily, and we got to see some nice pictures in the dev blog. We also had another new kid in town, Dayz Overwatch, which I tried out in July 2013. It was kind of a PvP, gun porn, fast cars, brum 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 version of the Dayz mod. While it was fun at first, it got dull pretty fast. So I went back to Epoch, but continued monitoring the progress of Dayz Standalone every now and then. I had a busy time running some custom Epoch servers in autumn 2013, and I didn't actually get to play that much. Still, I kept Dayz Standalone on my radar, but didn't maintain high hopes for it, since the dev blog made it seem like just a polished version of the mod. Many of us have since moved on since picking Epoch up. 3 was finally released to retail in September 2013 and took my mind off the Z's for a while. Well, not completely. I still had thoughts about Dayz Standalone getting an Arma 3 suit. It gave me some hope for Standalone again. Now all they would need to do is release the damn thing. Oh, and there was a little thing called Breaking Point too, but we'll come to that later. Thank you for participating in the Dayz Early Access. This game is in alpha and will be so for some time. This means you will experience bugs, unfinished features, problematic design decisions, and many more things that disrupt your game experience. We will be working with the community to fix these. To help us, please visit dayzgame.com for development information. Above all, please remember this game is not finished and is a work in progress. That was a message that greeted me the first time I fired up Dayz Standalone, just over a year ago. It greeted me every time I started the game since then, too. Standalone was finally out and we were playing it. I think I put in about 40 hours in the first week or so. And to my own surprise, all my doubts were erased, and I was eager to see what the game had to offer. Well, eventually I found out after about 40 hours. I think it's fair to say that ultimately I was excited to play Dayz Standalone, but I never asked myself why I was so excited, when the various mods have been so good. Was it because the game was just so friggin' awesome, or was it something else? It added a lot more immersion to the experience. Eating and drinking, you could stuff yourself on food, but you'd eventually cause your poor shriveled belly to start vomiting it all up, thus causing your energy level to drop. The HUD was redesigned to suggest things to do without showing you everything with a pinpoint accuracy. Almost all of the buildings were now enterable, so you could spend more time scavenging instead of just running straight to places you knew had working doors. And tons of new clothing and gear had been added, so you could customize your character to make it look more like you. For the first few days of standalone life, and for the first time in a long time in Dayz's history, just wandering around Chernarus and gathering supplies, sightseeing and checking out the new places was fun again. There was other features that allowed you to interact with your fellow survivors in new ways as well. Take them hostage, take their gear, and even force them to drink poisonous stuff. And none of these things were to be seen in the vanilla Dayz mod. But there was traffic in the other direction too. Standalone's zombies were dull and dumb, easy to kill and not very prevalent. You would see them standing idle in the cities, only springing to life when players got near enough. Guns were rare, probably not such a bad idea actually, but crucially there was no vehicles at all. You see, Chernarus gets old pretty fast when you have to run everywhere. And to me it was odd that we were finally using this better version of the game, which had an engine that could do driving and flying, and yet we were still hiking everywhere like a bunch of lost students. I felt like I had a sandbox demo with tons of features but no development content. At all. We were eating and drinking like kings and throwing up too, or sticking to the coast and feasting on the newbies in the Balada Cherno Electro Baronzino kill zone. It's easy to point to the intro of Standalone, that it's not actually a finished product. But I dare say that it was finished. It was finished to the extent it was meant to be finished. It was just disguised as an alpha, because it was easier to say, it's just an early alpha, than, hey, we started the hype train and now we've run out of track. Hope you like it. We had to release something and buy some time to maybe add some more shit to it later on. And it still hasn't changed that much since it came out a year ago. So that's what I was thinking after 40 hours of playing Dayz Standalone. We weren't too far into 2014 when the news broke. Dean Hall will be leaving Bohemia Interactive and stepping down as leader of the Dayz Standalone team, sometime later that year. In interviews, he used a metaphor about him being a grenade, and how he could one day become a hindrance to the project, among other reasons, so he decided to call it quits. Well, good luck finishing your future games, Mr. Time Explosive. All I could think of was, why? Why? The Dayz Standalone Alpha had sold over 1 million copies by that point and had a stellar community supporting it, and now the guy didn't want to see it through to the end? Huh? The phrase bailing out circled my mind, and in darker moments, cashing out. But maybe it wasn't so bad. Like I said, the game was pretty much finished. From then on, it would just be larger patches, minor expansions, and maybe DLC all the way. There was no creative need for Dean Rocket Hall anymore. He'd done his part, and it was up to the others to carry the flag now. But despite all his reasons, most of which made perfect sense, he just couldn't quite convince the community. In spring-summer 2014, Arma 2 Overpoch came around. This was yet another variant, this time a combination of Epoch and Overwatch, with some extra customization by CustomCombatGaming.com. Dayz was fun again. The only downside was that a lot of the high-profile Dayz YouTube celebs were playing it, and the servers were packed with hordes of fanboys, traipsing around after their heroes. But I managed to get my share of Overpoch action, stuck with it for a month or so, and then lost interest in the whole thing, wading through the mess of donation bases, prefab bases that could be rented for real money, and an in-game economy causing servers not to spawn vehicles as the object count was already through the roof with player-owned stuff. Even so, Overpoch was something of an unexpected delight, and proved that the vanilla Dayz mod could still kick ass. At this point, it's also worth mentioning the Arma 3 mod, Breaking Point, which had originally come out in 2013, but pushes up from the same ground as the Arma 3 Epoch Overpoch variants. I should also mention that I did continue to check in the standalone hotel every now and then, just to see how much noticeable change had taken place, but the game felt pretty much the same every time I looked. On the other hand, the Arma 3 updating of Epoch was something I had been eagerly awaiting. I had seen some early footage of it and couldn't wait to play it. The team had crafted a nice backstory for it, and perhaps knowingly had tried to distance themselves from the bulk of the zombie genre. In terms of the two Arma 3 Poch mods, there isn't much difference. Overpoch is a more puffed-up version of Epoch, so the two are fairly comparable. Arma 3 Breaking Point, on the other hand, still clings to the traditional zombie shtick, and pays more homage to the original Arma 2 Dayz mod. It has its own unique character system and some other role-playing elements too. However, it's safe to say that I've spent more time patching it than actually playing it. And yet I'm still very fond of it, and we do go out occasionally, so if you're into Dayz but have never tried it, get patching and see what you think. Then let us know in the comments below. The other effect of the Dayz community's modding activity, Standalone has seemed to have had its development kicked up a notch or two. Some of its game mechanics have been reworked, and improvements have been made to crafting, but there's still not enough endgame content to really lift your spirits as you slog around the island avoiding death and starvation. Sure, you can grow tomatoes now and pitch tents to store your stuff in, and we also now have the first vehicles running, but isn't it all a little bit too late? So, what better way is there to piss off a gaming community than to tell them you want more money? Is there one? In November 2014, Bohemia announced that further along the Dayz Standalone development roadmap, as the game hits beta and then on full release, they would begin charging more for it. Probably not a bad business decision, even a necessary one to keep the official servers running, but probably not the best thing to announce ahead of time, especially with all the questions surrounding Standalone's longevity and validity. However, Bohemia also had made some intriguing promises to keep people jumping aboard and ease the money sting. These include advanced vehicles, vehicle mods and repairing already exist people, so go check Dayz Origins, player stats, animal companions, and the construction to name but a few. There's also a console prototype on the horizon, not to mention promise of monthly DLC. The full release is now scheduled for 2016, with the beta later in 2015. Whilst we're looking ahead, I wonder what kind of mods the now legendary Dayz mod will have inspired by 2016. Or will Sony's H1Z1 have lured away the player base? Or conversely, will it be so bad that Dayz, in whatever form it takes then, will gain hundreds of thousands of new players? For now, Dean Hall has left Bohemia and gone back to New Zealand, where he's building his own studio and making the games he likes to make. The team at Bohemia Interactive are pushing on, towards the original standalone vision, and there are still huge amounts of people playing all the different mods I've mentioned here. Some of us, myself included, play them all. I still sometimes play standalone with my friends, progressing on, bit by bit. But to bring this video to a close, I'd like to say I don't think you can fault anyone for feeling disappointed with Dayz Standalone. I really think that the will was there to make an awesome zombie game that would sweep through the gaming community and be remembered for years to come. The only problem is, the modders were faster. They were able to capture our love for the genre, and the original mod, and even change it. It was the modders that actually took the ideas for building, hunting, item modding, crafting, currency, and made them real. The original's imperative to simply survive became a slightly more sustainable cycle of action and recovery. Well, mostly vicious PvPing, but you get the point. And the modders even came up with an actual endgame. Lots of stuff was made that lots of people care for and tell amazing stories with, making for great gaming moments. It was the modders, the players, and the community that made it what it is, no matter which engine it was running on. And so, while the DayZ team is continuing to turn Standalone into what is essentially a more polished version of the original Arma 2 DayZ mod, as a community we've outgrown that. It's as simple as that. Ultimately though, we should remember where all this started, with an Arma 2 mod called DayZ, made as a labor of love by someone who is himself a gamer and modder, Mr. Dean Hall. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that he got a piece of my $24.